Imagine standing on the blood-soaked grounds of Fort Mifflin, a place where echoes of the past are said to still linger, weaving shadows of history into the very walls. Built in 1771 and nestled along the Delaware River, Fort Mifflin is more than just a historic relic. It is a haunting reminder of lives lost and battles fought. From the cries of soldiers who met their end on its grounds to the chilling legend of the Screaming Woman, this fort has witnessed centuries of suffering. This is the story of a place where silence speaks louder than words, where ghostly apparitions roam the corridors, and where the spirits of fallen soldiers and forgotten souls may still linger, bound by tragedy. Join us as we delve into the mysteries of Fort Mifflin, unraveling tales of valor, sorrow, and the unexplainable. What lies hidden in the shadows of this ancient stronghold? Stay with us and discover why Fort Mifflin remains one of the most haunted sites in America, a place where the line between history and haunting blurs into the unknown. First story, Cries from the Battlefield, the mystery of Mifflin Fort. Nestled silently on the banks of the Delaware River near Philadelphia, Fort Mifflin stands as a monument of both valor and sorrow. Built in 1771, this ancient stronghold has borne witness to centuries of conflict and pain, from the Revolutionary War to the Civil War. Its walls, once vibrant with the sound of soldiers' feet, are now shrouded in an eerie quiet, a silence that hints at something lingering, something that cannot leave. In 1777, as the American colonies fought fiercely for independence, Fort Mifflin became a target for the British forces advancing along the Delaware River. The fort's defenders, a small contingent of the Continental Army, were tasked with delaying the British Navy to protect General Washington's nearby forces. Their resources were limited, their cannons outdated, and ammunition scarce. Yet their resolve was unwavering. As cannons thundered, the walls of Fort Mifflin shook under the relentless British assault. The air was thick with the acrid smell of gunpowder and the desperate cries of wounded men. Amid this chaos, a young soldier named Thomas Thatcher huddled in a quiet corner, furiously scribbling a letter to his mother. His words conveyed a mixture of hope and fear, a determination to return home, but a readiness to die for his cause. Sadly, like many of his fellow soldiers, Thomas's life was cut short that day. He perished in the barrage, his body buried hastily within the fort's grounds. It is said that those who visit the ruins today can feel a deep sadness, a lingering presence near the place where Thomas and his comrades fell. Some claim to see the apparition of a young soldier in tattered uniform, standing by the battered walls, his gaze distant and sorrowful, as though searching for a piece that eluded him in life. One of Fort Mifflin's most chilling tales is the legend of the Screaming Woman. According to local lore, Elizabeth Pratt, the wife of an officer stationed at the fort, suffered a tragic loss. Her only daughter fell ill and died suddenly, sending Elizabeth into a spiral of grief that would ultimately consume her. Unable to bear the pain, Elizabeth took her own life within the fort's walls. Since then, her agonized cries have been heard echoing through the corridors, piercing the quiet of the night. Local residents, disturbed by the chilling screams, have even called the authorities, only for police to find the fort empty. The cries, described as heart-wrenching and filled with despair, leave listeners with a bone-deep chill. Those who have seen her say Elizabeth's spirit roams the fort at night, a spectral figure dressed in an old-fashioned gown, her face pale and filled with sorrow. Her eyes hold a sadness so profound, it seems to reach into the very souls of those who glimpse her. It's as if her anguish is etched into the very walls of Fort Mifflin, unable to fade, a scar on a place where history and haunting collide. Years after the Revolutionary War, Fort Mifflin was repurposed during the Civil War as a prison for Confederate soldiers and Union deserters. Among these prisoners was William Howe, a Union soldier sentenced to death for desertion. Locked away in the isolated confines of Casemate 11, a small stone cell with barely any light, Howe awaited his fate. Today, Casemate 11 is infamous for its paranormal activity. Visitors report feeling an oppressive heaviness as soon as they step inside, an icy chill that seems to seep into the bones. Some have seen the figure of a man, hunched and sorrowful, pacing the tiny room as if trapped in an endless cycle of regret. Paranormal investigators have recorded strange phenomena within the cell, whispers, groans, and sometimes a desperate plea, "Let me out." In one chilling recording, a voice was distinctly heard saying, "I didn't mean to run." Those brave enough to spend a night in Casemate 11 report feeling a sudden cold hand resting on their shoulder, as if the restless spirit of William Howe still lingers, trapped in a prison of his own remorse. In 1980, a team of U.S. Army engineers visited Fort Mifflin for a routine inspection. As they walked along the parapet, one soldier noticed a man dressed in a Revolutionary War uniform standing a short distance away. Assuming he was a reenactor, the engineer called out to him, but the man only stared back with a vacant, haunted look. Moments later, the figure vanished. Shaken, the soldier later learned that he was not the first to see this ghostly sentinel. Numerous visitors have reported seeing a lone soldier in ragged uniform, forever gazing out over the Delaware River, as though still keeping watch over the fort he once fought to protect. Fort Mifflin is more than just a historic landmark. It's a place where the line between the past and present blurs. The fort's corridors, filled with the echoes of battles long fought, hold the secrets of the soldiers who never left. The paranormal community regards it as one of the most haunted military sites in America, drawing history buffs, thrill seekers, and investigators who hope to connect with the fort's ghostly inhabitants. As they walk the grounds, visitors often hear faint whispers in the wind, the distant sound of footsteps, and sometimes a soft voice calling their name. Those brave enough to linger after dark report seeing shadowy figures drifting through the rooms, faces twisted in anguish or regret. The spirits seem to welcome those who dare to enter, perhaps eager to share their stories, or perhaps to warn them of the price of forgetting the past. Today, Fort Mifflin remains a place where history is as alive as the present. It stands as a testament to sacrifice, heroism, and the haunting weight of memories. For those who visit, Fort Mifflin offers a glimpse into the unknown, a journey into a world where the echoes of the past never truly fade, and where the spirits of those who suffered still linger, unable or unwilling to let go. For some, Fort Mifflin is just a historic site. For others, it's a reminder of the unseen, the mysteries that lie beyond our understanding, and the haunting realization that sometimes the past refuses to rest. Story 2: Ghosts on Shiloh Hill, the terrible battle and the souls that never leave. In early April 1862, the fields surrounding Shiloh, Tennessee, were quiet, their rolling green hills blanketed in morning mist. The air held a silence that felt almost sacred, as if the land itself knew that something terrible was coming. Nestled near a small, unassuming church, Shiloh would soon become the stage for one of the bloodiest confrontations of the American Civil War, a brutal clash that would leave over 23,000 soldiers dead, wounded, or missing. But it wasn't the horror of battle alone that would stain the fields of Shiloh. It was the restless souls that remained, haunting the land, forever bound to their tragic last moments. As dawn broke on April 6th, the first sounds of cannon fire shattered the stillness. The Union and Confederate forces, locked in a fierce struggle, turned the once peaceful countryside into a hellscape of smoke and blood. Gunfire echoed through the trees, drowning out birdsong, while the cries of the wounded mixed with the roar of cannons. Soldiers stumbled through the dense woods, disoriented and terrified as the ground beneath them quickly became slick with mud and blood. For hours, the battle raged on, with neither side gaining ground, and as day turned to night, the chaos showed no signs of abating. On the second day, the fighting intensified around a small, heavily defended area known as the Hornet's Nest. Union soldiers dug in, determined to hold their ground against the relentless Confederate assault. The field around them became littered with bodies, a grim testament to the ferocity of the conflict. And as the sun began to set on that second day, silence finally fell over Shiloh, a quiet so profound it seemed unnatural. The battle had ended, but for those who remained, the real horror was only beginning. In the days that followed, doctors and locals ventured out onto the battlefield to tend to the wounded and bury the dead. But as they moved among the fallen, strange whispers began to circulate. Some claimed to see a faint, eerie glow hovering over the bodies along the Tennessee River. The soldiers called it the battlefield halo, a ghostly light that seemed to flicker and dance in the darkness. Locals, however, believed it was something far more sinister, a sign that the spirits of the fallen were unable to move on, trapped in a limbo between life and death. The more time passed, the more the stories grew. Veterans returning to Shiloh to pay their respects reported sightings of ghostly figures wandering the fields and forests, their uniforms torn and blood-stained, their faces twisted in anguish. These apparitions seemed to be searching for something, or someone, lost to them. Those who saw them described an overwhelming sense of sorrow, as if they were witnessing a tragedy that refused to be forgotten. Then came the tales of the phantom drums. On quiet nights near the Hornet's Nest, visitors began to report hearing the faint, rhythmic sound of drums beating in the distance. It was no ordinary drum beat. It was a steady, ominous cadence, as if summoning soldiers to battle once more. The sound seemed to come from deep within the woods, growing louder as night fell. Those who heard it were struck with a sense of dread, a feeling that the battle was far from over, and that the spirits of Shiloh were forever bound to the echoes of war. One of the most chilling stories to emerge from Shiloh was that of the blue-eyed soldier. Many Union soldiers recounted seeing him in their dreams or during moments of solitude. He was a young man with piercing blue eyes, his gaze filled with sorrow and an unspoken question. Those who encountered him described an unshakable chill, as if the air around them grew heavy and cold. The blue-eyed soldier would appear in the mist, watching silently, his expression one of profound sadness. And then, just as suddenly as he appeared, he would vanish, leaving behind an air of mystery and despair. But the stories didn't end there. As years went by, Shiloh became a destination for paranormal investigators and curious tourists alike. Those brave enough to venture onto the battlefield at night reported a host of strange experiences, unexplained sounds, sudden drops in temperature, and an overwhelming feeling of sorrow. Some claimed to hear voices whispering in the darkness, voices that seemed to call out names, as if searching for lost comrades. One particular account stands out, told by a man who had visited Shiloh on the anniversary of the battle. As he wandered the fields alone, he felt an inexplicable pull toward the Tennessee River, where the battlefield halo was said to appear. As he approached, he saw a faint light dancing on the water, a shimmering glow that seemed to move with a life of its own. He felt a chill run down his spine as he realized the light was not a reflection, but something else entirely, something otherworldly. He watched, frozen in terror, as the light grew brighter, taking on the form of a soldier, his face pale and his eyes hollow. The soldier raised his hand as if beckoning, and the man stumbled backward, unable to look away. The apparition faded as quickly as it had appeared, leaving him shaken and convinced that he had witnessed the spirit of a fallen soldier searching for peace. Even today, those who visit Shiloh speak of the strange, unearthly atmosphere that pervades the battlefield. For many, the air feels thick with sorrow, as if the land itself remembers the bloodshed and loss. Some say the spirits of Shiloh are still there, forever bound to the fields where they fell, their souls trapped in a cycle of grief and despair. The story of Shiloh is not just a tale of war and death. It is a reminder of the toll that violence takes on the human soul. It is a place where the past and present seem to collide, where the line between the living and the dead is as thin as a whisper. Those who dare to walk its haunted grounds leave with a sense of unease, a feeling that they have glimpsed something beyond the veil, a place where history refuses to rest, and the spirits of the fallen are doomed to wander, forever searching for the peace that eluded them in life. Shiloh remains one of the most haunted battlefields in American history, a place where the echoes of war still linger, a silent testament to the lives cut short by the brutality of conflict. For those who visit, it is more than just a historical site. It is a place where the past feels close enough to touch, where the memories of battle and bloodshed are woven into the very fabric of the land. It is a place where the ghosts of Shiloh walk, a reminder that some wounds never heal and some souls never find rest. Story 3. The Ghost Soldiers of Antietam. Echoes of the bloodiest day in American history. It was a crisp autumn morning in September 1862, but the stillness of dawn was an illusion. Behind the tranquil facade, two massive armies lay poised for battle near the sleepy town of Sharpsburg, Maryland. That day would be remembered as the Battle of Antietam, the bloodiest single day in American history, a day when the ground turned red and the screams of the fallen echoed through the fields. Yet, the horror of Antietam was not to be buried with its dead. Long after the cannons had fallen silent, locals, veterans, and even casual passers-by would come to believe that the spirits of those who fought on that tragic day still roamed the battlefield, trapped in an endless cycle of suffering and loss. As the sun rose on September 17th, 1862, its pale light struggled to cut through a heavy morning mist. The air was thick, pressing down on the soldiers who waited, trembling with a mixture of fear and resolve. Then, with the first shot, all tranquility shattered. Cannon fire roared across the hills, shaking the earth as waves of soldiers surged into the cornfield, where the first brutal conflict would take place. For hours, Union and Confederate forces clashed amidst the tall corn stalks, turning the once peaceful field into a nightmarish labyrinth of smoke, blood, and death. Soldiers on both sides could barely see their opponents through the dense smoke. In the chaos, comrades fell by the dozen, their bodies crushed beneath the boots of those still charging forward. By noon, the cornfield was littered with bodies, so thickly packed that blood pooled and ran through the furrows in the soil. Survivors described it as a hellscape where the cries of the wounded and dying rose in a desperate chorus. But for those who didn't survive, it was said that the cornfield became their eternal prison. As the battle raged on, another bloody confrontation was unfolding along a narrow trench known as the Sunken Road. Here, soldiers sought shelter, but the trenches quickly became a death trap. Men piled atop one another as each new volley of bullets claimed more lives. Blood ran down the embankments, creating a macabre river of red. By the end of the day, the trench would be known as Bloody Lane, forever marked by the terrible weight of the souls who had fallen there. In the evening, the final stand took place at Burnside's Bridge, where Union forces attempted to cross the Antietam Creek under relentless Confederate fire. The bridge itself seemed to shudder under the weight of the conflict as men fell into the water, their bodies washing downstream. Witnesses spoke of the creek running red, its banks littered with the fallen. As night fell and the gunfire ceased, a terrible silence engulfed the battlefield. Under the cover of darkness, local townsfolk crept onto the fields to tend to the wounded and gather the dead. The air was thick with the smell of gunpowder and blood, and an eerie mist clung to the ground, swirling around the bodies strewn across the fields. But as they moved among the fallen, whispers of something unnatural began to spread. One of the first strange sightings was a ghostly glow along the banks of the Antietam Creek. Locals described it as a faint, otherworldly light that flickered along the water, appearing to dance over the bodies of the fallen soldiers. Some called it the battlefield halo, while others believed it was the spirits of the dead, their souls searching for a way back home. For nights afterward, people claimed to see these lights moving across the fields, and a sense of dread began to settle over Sharpsburg. As time passed, the stories grew stranger and more terrifying. Some said that if you listened closely in the stillness of dawn, you could hear the faint sounds of a bugle call echoing through the mist, a spectral call to arms for soldiers long dead. Others reported hearing the distant beat of phantom drums coming from the depths of the cornfield, a haunting rhythm that stirred an inexplicable fear in all who heard it. Witnesses described it as if the battlefield itself were alive, replaying the horrors of that day over and over again. But perhaps the most unsettling tales came from those who dared to visit the battlefield under the cover of night. Visitors spoke of encountering the Lost Regiment, a spectral troop of soldiers seen moving in formation down Bloody Lane, their faces pale and eyes hollow, their uniforms tattered and blood-stained. They marched in eerie silence, their movements mechanical, as if trapped in a loop, forever bound to the moment of their death. Those who saw them described an overwhelming feeling of sorrow, a sadness so deep it seemed to seep into their bones. One of the most chilling encounters came from a Union veteran named Samuel Reed, who returned to Antietam years after the battle, hoping to find closure. As he walked alone along the sunken road, he was overwhelmed by memories of fallen comrades and the unbearable weight of survivors' guilt. Suddenly, a thick fog rose from the ground, swirling around him. Out of the mist, a figure emerged, a soldier with a familiar face. Samuel's heart stopped as he recognized his friend, a comrade who had fallen beside him that day. The soldier's face was ghostly pale, his uniform tattered and stained with blood. His eyes were empty, void of life, yet filled with an unspoken sorrow. The ghostly figure stared at Samuel, his mouth moving soundlessly as if trying to speak. Samuel took a step back, a cold dread filling him as he realized the truth. His friend's spirit was trapped, bound to this place of horror, unable to find peace. The figure raised a hand, reaching out to Samuel, but as he did, he began to fade, dissolving back into the mist. Samuel stumbled backward, his heart pounding, his mind reeling with terror and grief. He had come seeking closure, but instead he left with a chilling realization that the souls of Antietam's fallen had never truly left. Today, the battlefield at Antietam remains a place of reverence and dread. Paranormal investigators, historians, and curious tourists all flock to the site, each hoping to catch a glimpse of the past that lingers there. Many have left with stories of their own, tales of ghostly encounters and inexplicable phenomena that defy logic. The battlefield itself seems to hold on to its history, refusing to let the memories of that day fade. Even now, visitors speak of strange encounters, a sudden chill, an unexplained shadow, the faint sound of footsteps on gravel, or a whispered voice calling out from the darkness. Some have reported hearing the cries of men in pain, their voices echoing through the mist on quiet mornings. And on the rarest of occasions, those who venture into the cornfield at dawn have witnessed the phantom soldiers, still marching, forever bound to the blood-soaked land of Antietam. The story of Antietam is more than just a tale of war. It is a haunting reminder of the cost of conflict and the souls that were lost. It is a place where the past feels ever present, where the boundary between life and death seems paper-thin. For those who walk its fields, Antietam is not just a historical site. It is a silent, mournful witness to the bloodiest day in American history, a day so steeped in sorrow that even the passage of time cannot erase its shadow. For those brave enough to venture into the heart of Antietam, the spirits of the battlefield wait, forever marching, forever haunted, and forever bound to the memory of that fateful September day. The echoes of Antietam's past linger still, a testament to lives cut short and a reminder that some tragedies refuse to be forgotten. Thank you for watching today's story. I hope these chilling experiences have made you reflect on fears and trust in life. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss out on more engaging stories and interesting content in the future. Thank you for your support, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.